Hello, everyone. Welcome to Instructional Design. My name is Derek Kumi, and in today's presentation, I provide an overview of instructional design models. So, this is going to be the outline for today's presentation. What is an instructional design? What are the learning theories that are grounded in these instructional design models? And of course, I go through the widely used instructional design models. These models have a way of representing them, and so I do that with a graphical representation. And of course, I analyze these instructional design models through the learning theory lens or framework. And of course, I select Merrill's first principle of instruction and apply it in a real world classroom. So, what is instructional design? One of the problems we face in education is the challenge of linking theory and practice. Instructional design alleviates this problem by acting as a linking science between learning theory and educational practice. Therefore, instructional design can be defined as the linking science that blends learning theory and experiment based principles with creative design to create effective, engaging instruction. This creative design is what, of course, the instructor of the course, Dr. Ken, terms the versatile toolbox. What are the learning theories in instructional design? I synthesize Ertmer et al.'s characterization of learning theories in this presentation. So they came up with three learning theories: behaviorism, constructivism, and cognitivism. So behaviorism is essentially um, learning that is brought about by repetition and reinforcement. Cognitivism is also engages the internal mental structures. And lastly, constructivism is the construction of meaning from experience. Oftentimes, people do conflate the meaning of cognitivism and constructivism because both require some form of mental structure. But the difference is that cognitivism is purely using your mental apparatus, but constructivism has to do with the interaction between the a person and his or her environment. The first instructional design model is the ADDIE model. ADDIE is widely described as a general label for five-phase instructional systems development process that emerged from military ISD work in 1970. So the key components are analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So this is the graphical representation of ADDIE model. The first one, analysis. So analysis is essentially identify all key variables that will shape the course design, including learner characteristics, the learner's prior knowledge, and available resource. The second is design. So in this phase, there is the need to define the course learning objectives, assessment plan, strategy, and content sequencing. The third, which is development, this requires that you create and assemble the course materials. So that is building materials and activities because learning cannot happen in a vacuum. The fourth is implementation. This is where you deliver or launch the instruction, and lastly, evaluation. So, evaluation is not just formative, but it is also summative. So, as the learning goes on, the instructor makes sure that they evaluate student understanding in the course of the lesson, and at the end of the lesson, there is an evaluation. So, going through the ADDIE model, you realize that it's an instructional design model which is neutral, in that I mean, whether you ground whatever you are trying to teach in behaviorism, cognitivism, or constructivism, it will work, but it depends on how instruction is designed. And the instructional level fit, like I said, so because it is theory neutral, it works at course and program or curriculum levels. The next model is the Dick and Carey model, instructional model. So this was first proposed in a book, and the book is called The Systematic Design of Instruction by Walter Dick and Lou Carey. This model formalizes instruction as an interrelated system. So the key components are: it puts strong emphasis on instructional analysis, and in this model, there is an aligned objectives, assessment, and then strategy. It also integrates formative evaluation and revision. They are not optional, they are key components of this model. So this is the graphical representation of Dick and Carey model. And as you can see, I am not going to go deeper into this as they are self-explanatory. But one thing that I can say about this model is that it's just like the ADDIE model. Evaluation is both summative and formative. So in the course of instruction, students or children are evaluated or assessed, and then at the end of the instruction, they are assessed too. So it goes from identifying instructional goals to developing and conducting summarize evaluation. And of course, there is a revision of instruction in the course of every stage of instruction. So the Dick and Carey model leans towards the cognitive and the behaviorist domain. Sometimes the constructivist domain is also applicable, but it requires intentional design choice. So, yeah, and the instructional level fit, it is strongest at course and unit design. Our next instructional design model is the Gagné's, sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly, Gagné's 9 event of instruction. So Gagné, a name of a person, proposed these events to align instruction with the mental conditions for learning, and it was first associated with his work on the conditions of learning, and you can find this book online. This is the graphical representation of Gagné's 9 events of instruction. The first one is gain attention, inform students of the objectives, stimulate recall of prior learning, present the content, provide learning guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and then lastly, enhance retention and transfer. And as you can see, there is one particular stage which runs through so far all the models that I have explained. the fact that there is an assessment either in the course of the instruction and or at the end of instruction. The Gagné's 9 events model is primarily cognitivist, and as I explained in the previous slide, that it engages the mental structures, and that is why it is purely cognitivist. And of course, it is strongest at lesson or module level. The next instructional design model is the rapid e-learning. So rapid e-learning is widely described as an approach that produces web-capable instruction faster and at lower cost. And so of the models explained before, you realize that some of them do have intricate stuff to them, but the rapid e-learning is just, I want to do this faster at a lower cost. And this is highly subjective. In other books or in other uh, characterizations of the rapid e-learning model, people do come up with different stages, but this is what I ended up with. You set goals, use templates. We are using templates because we want to work faster at a lower cost. So we're not going to try to create everything from scratch. And you have to know your tools. You keep activities brief, of course, brief is underlined. Present real world benefits and keep visuals simple. The rapid e learning is also primarily cognitivist, and it is best suited for short modules. Remember, we want to be fast and at a lower cost. So you don't want to apply the e-learning model when you have a very long module or lessons. The last instructional design module is the Merrill's first principle of instruction. Again, Merrill is the name of a person, and he propounded this model. You can check out his book in 2002 and 2013. The reason why he came up with this model is the intention of shifting instruction from tell, ask, to tell, show, and do. Remember, in the aforementioned models, there was a certain element where students are told and they are asked, but Merrill brings up this key argument that in order for learning to be lifetime, in order for a student not to forget, there is the need for them to do or show. So these are the key components. The first one is, of course, problem center, activation, demonstration, application, and integration. And this is the graphical representation of the model. I am not going to go through, I'm not going to dive a little bit deeper because in the latter stages of this presentation where I apply or I use this model in a real world certain. So, so the Merrill's first principle of instruction is primarily constructivist, and it's applicable or best suited for unit modules and lessons. So, how are we going to apply the Merrill's first principle? Of course, my area is algebra learning, and I would like to assess a grade 9 student's conceptual understanding of the equal sign. So, what do I do? Because the Merrill's first principle of instruction is purely or primarily constructivist, That is the reason why I am using this model to teach a student or use this model in my instruction. So as I said, we I want to assess a student's relational understanding of the equal sign and the structural reasoning in equations. So the anchor task is that I'm going to use non-canonical equations. So when we say non-canonical equations, we know that coming from the early grades, the elementary and middle school, students are always presented with equation where the answer is on the right, but they are not presented with equations that have the answer as the object, and you have other operations on the right hand side. And so that is part of the anchor tasks. It's not the only anchor task. The other task that I would like to also use in my instruction is open number sentences. Of course, these open number sentences defy the canonical equations that students are always privy to, and the student professor translation task. So, at the problem centered stage, I will start with authentic equivalence variables problem and revisit across a progression of tasks. So, at the problem center stage, this is where I present different types of problems, both canonical, non canonical, open number sentences, and the student professor problem. So, this is a problem presented to the student. And at the activation stage, I will repeatedly surface student existing, arithmetic based schemes, right? So students do treat the equal sign as an instruction to do something. So I would try to activate their prior knowledge in the early grades, right? The next one is demonstration. So this is where, um, like Merrill said, I'm not going to tell the student, but the student is going to show. So after going through the instruction of now knowing that whenever you see an equal sign, it's not an instruction to do something, but in understanding that the equal sign is just a relational artifact. It makes the right hand side and the left hand side equivalent, right? So as I activate that understanding, then the student will demonstrate through worked examples and non-examples. And of course, if you are able to demonstrate, then you will apply. You'll be given a problem, and problems that are not exactly what you went through, but requires you to apply what you have learned. And of course, integrating what he or she has learned. So students go public by explaining, defining, reasoning, critiquing solutions, and transferring to new contexts. Oh, I can't believe the presentation is coming to an end. I'm so sad, but no problem. So, instructional design models provide structured ways to turn learning goals, learner needs, and context into effective instruction. So, of the widely used instructional design models, the ADDIE and they can carry off a strong system level planning, alignment, and evaluation for course and program design. The Gagné's model support lesson level delivery by sequencing attention, guidance, practice, feedback, and transfer. And Merrill's model strengthens learning impact by centering authentic problem and ensuring activation, demonstration, application, and integration. The rapid e-learning emphasize speed, prototyping, and iteration. So one would ask, which of the models should I use? The answer is subjective. And of course, the best results come from matching the model to the task and the learner, combining structure with iteration, and designing for retention and transfer. And thank you for watching this presentation. I hope to see you soon, and let's connect through the socials, and that is my website. Thank you.